This is an event report for Small Bots of Mass Destruction Carnage Continues, held on July 14th at the Martin County Fairgrounds in Stuart, Florida. I competed at this event with my 150 gram bot you see here on the right, son of Gore Gore, and, well, everywhere else on the screen, my 3-pound bot Demon Spawn. Son of Gore Gore only had minor changes from firefights. I changed out the bottom dustpan bit so that it would be less susceptible to spinners like it was before. And Demon Spawn got an entire new rebuild. I actually did film build footage of it, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to edit that footage together to make any kind of narrative sense. So I'm not sure if or when I'll be able to release that footage. But the whole body was milled out of a solid piece of UHMW, and it had modular weapons, which was definitely a little different this time. And I guess this event was a little bit of a replacement. Originally, Florida SuperCon was that weekend, and last year we had robot fights at Florida SuperCon for both days, and I guess that got canceled. They didn't have room for us or something like that, and basically the fights moved a little bit up north to Stuart, and everything got compressed into a one-day event, which I think everyone who was there will agree. It was a very long day, but as always with robot events, it was a hell of a lot of fun. So let's get right into it and take a look at my robots fights. So we'll start off with Son of Gore Gore, and unfortunately the matches I had with Son of Gore Gore were basically against the exact wrong kind of robot, or wrong design robots that I would ever want to fight with this bot. First robot I was up against was called Eyesore. It was a wedge with two little kind of snail-like stalk eyes on the top of it. A unique bit which I think was supposed to be decorative, but ended up causing me a ton of problems. The eyes were just basically at the maximum height of the jaws on Son of Gore Gore, meaning I had a really hard time getting any bites down on the main body of the wedge. Also, very early on in the fight, I had two very thin pieces of metal stuck to the end of my dustpan, and after getting stuck in the seam in the middle of the arena a few times, the glue on those pieces kind of gave out and they just fell off, which left me with a very dull wedge on the front end of my bot. For the most part, if I was able to get Son of Gore Gore facing Eyesore, I was able to bring down the jaw and kind of push him around a little bit. But because Son of Gore Gore is a little more form over function, it's a very long dustpan bot, so sometimes I have a really hard time if a robot gets alongside me of trying to get back around, and it was a lot of Eyesore pushing Gore Gore from the side and then me trying to reverse to get out of that move, and it just looking like the robot's spinning around in a circle for a bit. At some point later on in the fight, Eyesore got stuck, I think, on the arena seam. It didn't seem to be moving, and I pushed it off just to keep the fight going. And then I was actually able to get the jaws of Son of Gore Gore around one of the eye stalks, but very promptly became stuck on the eye stalk, and they had to pause the match to separate the two bots. There wasn't a whole lot of fight left after that, and it kind of continued the same as everything that came before. Unfortunately, Son of Gore Gore lost that fight. It was a bit of a stressful driving match, and revealed some of the weaknesses with this robot that I hadn't really had a chance to encounter at firefights. So it did give me some good information to go forward with this robot, how maybe to redesign it or change some things up to be more effective against wedges like this. I honestly think if it hadn't been for those eye stalks, I would have actually done a fair bit better, just being able to get better clamps in on Eyesore, but because I really couldn't get a good grip on it, I wasn't able to do a whole lot. So next up, Son of Gore Gore was up against iKid. What is with the I robots this time? But this was the letter I as opposed to EYE. But either way, kind of a weird pairing of fights. But a very different robot. A very, very compact overhead bar spinner. And it was being driven by a very, very young child. So young that I don't think he was paying attention to most of the fight, and I didn't actually see how much his parents were helping him drive, but yeah, it was an interesting fight, because really there's not a whole lot to do with a bar spinner like that. You just spin the weapon up and you hit things. And for a while, it was more or less easy for Son of Gore Gore. The robot fit very easily into my dustpan. I couldn't resist chomping on him, so I ended up losing quite a few of the front teeth out of Gore Gore's head. They're just plastic from the original toy, so they just went flying all over the place. But I was able to push him around a little bit, and then we got back kind of towards the pit. And I think what happened is he got stuck on the lip of the pit, and I think I might have been trying to go in to finish and push him into the pit itself, and he ended up getting some really solid hits on the side of my dustpan and the side of the body, and actually knocked out one side of my drive. So I was left kind of crab walking for the rest of the match, and that is definitely problematic with the way the new dustpan on Son of Gore Gore is shaped. I have to get the robot in from the front. The sides are completely not an option anymore, and the sides are doing a great job of deflecting some of the hits because it is like 16th inch aluminum, but at the same time it made it almost impossible to crab walk the other robot into Gore Gore's mouth because it was just this very tiny moment of opportunity I'd have to get him in there, and one slight wrong move and I'd completely miss, and more than likely the bar spinner was going to hit me yet again. So kind of crab walked around the arena, and then at the very end, iKid hit Son of Gore Gore hard enough to send him flipping upside down. Son of Gore Gore cannot self-right, but it was under 10 seconds left in the match, and it went to a judge's decision. Unfortunately, I didn't win that judge's decision, so Son of Gore Gore was out of the tournament. And you can see here, I mean, it's actually pretty clean. Like, the teeth are just missing out of the front. The side teeth are still there. I think what basically happened, and this is a mess, and we'll get to why it's a mess later, but I think one of the drive motor mounts had actually come unglued, so the motor was still connected and working. It was just floating around inside the robot rather than actually functioning. And I can't tell for sure what damage is what, but there definitely are some kind of nicks here in the side of his teeth. And I fought some more horizontal spinners later, so I can't tell you for sure if it was iKid or not. But there definitely are some little cuts here in the 16th inch aluminum. And Son of Gore Gore's last but not least fight, and the reason he's in such sad shape right now, was the 150 gram bot Rumble. There wasn't a whole lot of robots left. This was hours and hours and hours after my last fight with Son of Gore Gore at the very, very end of the day, while waiting for batteries to charge for the finals. And there were only a handful of robots in this Rumble, and the clock actually was only set for 2 minutes, but that actually doesn't even matter in this case. As the Rumble started, I went after Wide Load, I think mostly because I've never had a fight against Wide Load before. Wide Load had a new weapon this time, and I kind of wanted to take the opportunity to see how Son of Gore Gore would stack up to that, and honestly to even see if that giant bug would fit in Gore Gore's mouth, and it did. Barely, but it did. So we kind of had our own little private battle in one side of the arena while Pissed Off Unicorn just spread death across the rest of the ring. Eventually, Pissed Off Unicorn got bored with what it was chewing on his side of the arena, came over and smacked Son of Gore Gore across the face, sending it into pieces across the arena. I think upside down yet again, but definitely separating the head, I think one of the drive motors, and really just putting it into a state where it could no longer drive. And then it became Pissed Off Unicorn versus the rest of the field. Son of Gore Gore did get hit again by Pissed Off Unicorn at some point. Unicorn was just shredding away at Wide Load and all the other bots left in the ring. But then eventually, after it had killed almost everything except for Wide Load, Unicorn's battery died, leaving Wide Load as the only working robot in the Rumble in under 2 minutes. I think it's the fastest Rumble I've ever been a part of. I could be wrong about that, but it was fast. So not the best showing for Son of Gore Gore. It definitely was, definitely got beat up. But I had so much fun with it. I love this stupid robot. I knew going in that it isn't exactly the robot that's going to win championships. It's, as I already said, way too long front to back for the type of robot it is. I had experimented with... I'll just put the head aside. I experimented with this new dustpan that was plenty strong, and I like the problem you had before where if something got bent, it would high center the robot. I mean, I don't think anything in the UK amp brackets is going to at least easily bend this to the point where it would cause a problem. But part of the problem was not sharpening the front of this itself and not angling it down. I was relying on those added on pieces to angle down, and those came off too easily. The sides were kind of cool. I like that they were the teeth on the side and held robots in, but maybe the front tooth needs to come off to allow robots to get a little further in before it becomes a harder fit. Not entirely sure everything needs to be changed on it. Obviously the foam parts need to be rebuilt. I actually kind of just was trying to be lazy and reuse some of the foam parts because it was kind of a last minute rebuild. And yeah, I am guessing Crave Monster never reuses his foam parts between tournaments, and I probably should have done something similar and actually replace the crappy foam bits that had already been chewed up. But Son of Gore Gore, I am really confident will be back at some point. I'm not ready to give up on this design yet. I don't care if it doesn't win any fights ever. I have way too much fun driving it and playing with it, and yeah, it's gonna keep showing up, I think. So next we're going to take a look at Demon Spawn's fights, and for the sake of noting it here, I am going to put the different attachments that I used in each fight onto the robot for its section of the video, but I'm only kind of half assembling them, so this isn't really how they were fully assembled for each match. This is just to give you a vague idea of what the robot looked like. Like, I don't even have the lifting servo installed in this guy right now, but basic idea of what this robot looked like in this mode. So Demon Spawn's first fight was up against a D-Lever, which was a very large horizontal bar spinner, similar to like a tombstone style design. But that fight, in my mind, took a lot longer to go through than it really did in practice. I was kind of having some driving issues at first. I kind of jokingly said to myself that it's because Demon Spawn's only ever had one wheel half the time, so I was kind of confused that I could turn left and right without issues and go straight. But I spent the first couple seconds of the match trying to line up and get across the box and get into the blade. I failed at that miserably, and eventually he got a small glancing blow in on the side of the wedge. And then I kind of got stuck on the seam in the center of the ring, and as I was trying to reorientate myself once I got free to face him, he managed to hit one of my wheels and basically knocked the snap ring and end part of the hub off, and I lost the tire itself. That impact was also hard enough that it caused my right side drive to give out, so I was basically left immobile. My one working side of drive no longer had a tire, and my other side was just dead. Actually was some minor damage to the wedge. They're really just kind of superficial scratches. They didn't go very deep. It messed up my paint job though, but yeah, some little scratches there on the wedge, but this section's basically good to go again. It just needs to be tightened back up and put back on the bot. And Demon Spawn's next fight was up against Ultra Microbite, the full body spinner, and I went with my Saw Blaze inspired attachment. Now I know this is not classically how you would want to fight a full body spinner when you have options, but I was the most excited about this attachment out of all the attachments I'd built for this robot. I built 4 attachments for the record. I only had 3 really working at the event, but this is the one I really want to try out. And knowing that no matter what I picked, there was a very good chance I probably would lose to Ultra Microbite. It's just a really tough robot to fight in general. I wanted to go with the weapon that I wanted to fight with. And I figured if I could get him to stop and get under his shell and get the saw down on him, their titanium shell would make some great sparks. So as the fight started, I actually got what I wanted a little early on. I did manage to kind of clip his shell with the saw blade and throw up some nice titanium sparks. But after that, it went poorly very quickly. He wasn't slowing down one bit when I'd hit him, and it was sending me flying, so I didn't really have any opportunity to get in and really hold him and make him stop. I think I probably need to get an actual dustpan attachment for this robot rather than just these forks if I have any hope of stopping a robot like that. But after a couple of hits, Ultra Microbite managed to flip Demon Spawn, and I got confused with my controls and was using the throttle instead of the arm movement, and it took me a little too long to try to self-right, and in that time, Ultra Microbite went and hit the saw while the saw was spinning full speed and sent it flying across the arena. It actually landed between the Lexan and the kick plate on the far, from my perspective, far left backside of the arena, and then drove itself across the gap between the kick plate and the glass all the way over to where the pit was, where it popped back out and flew into the arena again, which is really cool, and I don't think I could replicate that again if I tried. I believe it was also in that hit that Demon Spawn's problems with its drive came back, and it ended up being a lot more of Demon Spawn crab walking, trying to hit Microbite. Very similar to the iKid fight with Son of Gore Gore. And then eventually I managed to corner Microbite, and he hit me and knocked one of my wheels off. Fortunately, it was the bad wheel. And at the same time, my wedge actually got stuck onto his base plate, and I proceeded to use all the time I had to smack the top of his shell spinner with what was left of the saw arm, which was mostly just the arm part. Technically, we probably should have been separated, but it was close enough to the end of the fight that I don't think anybody was going to bother really going in and separating the robots. They were stuck together a little too long, and I couldn't release Microbite. went to microbite, as it should have. But if I'm going to lose a fight, I will gladly lose a fight that way, because that was a lot of fun. So for the damage here, obviously I lost the wheel. And I've always seen people lose saw blades on the FingerTech hub because the hub lets go. Well, that wasn't the case here. It actually held on so well that it took the shaft off with it, leaving the motor just a bit of a nub right there. So the motor's useless now, but the hub actually held on really well to the blade. And then at the end of the fight, what had happened, I forget which fork it was, but basically one of the forks, the spring steel extra wedge bit here on top had come up, basically gone above his base plate inside of the robot, while the aluminum piece underneath went below the robot and basically had a vice grip onto the base plate of Ultra Microbite, where the two robots basically couldn't separate themselves. I think once we actually got them out of the arena, it took a little bit of effort to actually pull them apart. So not an intentional entanglement bit, but something maybe I should be careful about in the future, because that could be a problem. And finally for Demon Spawn, there was the Beetleweight Rumble. Weren't a whole lot of robots left by this point, so I think it was only really Demon Spawn, French Revolution, and then a bunch of Team X stuff. But for this match, I decided to swap over to the horizontal spinner for Demon Spawn. Ironically enough, I wasn't thinking that this weapon was going to work particularly well. I actually hadn't used it earlier because I had some worries that it just wouldn't work at all. And it probably ended up being the best working weapon out of my three. So this was a little more chaotic of a rumble, so it's really hard to kind of say exactly what happened when, but Demon Spawn did manage to get some good hits, I think on all the bots, particularly on the little toy wrapped in duct tape that Team X brought in. Granted, that's not really a beetle weight that's going to hold up the damage, but it was fun to sever the motors out of that thing. Got some decent hits in on Hexy's Revenge and French Revolution. For some reason, I kept getting near Hyperling and was never really able to get a good bite on any part of it. I thought maybe I was going to take his wheel out at one point, and I think right before I hit the wheel, French Revolution came in and hit Hyperling and sent both of them flying, and I was just left there trying to hit nothing. Eventually I went head to head with French Revolution for a little bit, and he ended up removing one of my wheels. The robot had actually been driving really good up until that point, and then I was kind of stuck crab walking around for the rest of the rumble. But I was able to get to some of the robots and hit them some more with my disc, and even though I didn't win the rumble, I was actually pretty impressed with how Demon Spawn did. I really had pretty minimal expectations for how the horizontal spinner would perform, and it worked pretty damn well. So that is it for Small Bots Mass Destruction. Carnage Continues. Not a very successful tournament in least for me, but I had a ton of fun. I definitely saw ways that I need to improve both of my robots here. And I mean, it's always just a great time hanging out with other builders, talking to people, new builders, people that have been doing this forever. It's a great mix at this event too. A lot of new builders coming in. I think some of them from the Makerspace from Miami, and the maybe Treasure Coast Makerspace as well. And then I got to see some people that I hadn't seen probably in almost about a year, I think since Orlando Maker Fair. So it was really good to catch up with them and get to spend the day watching robots rip each other apart. It was definitely a long day. It was kind of an intense day. I didn't have all that many fights, and it still felt pretty crazy and intense. So I'm sure the people that went really far into the tournament were feeling it 20 times more than me. But it was an absolute blast. Thank you to Kurt and his team for putting on the event. Also got to check out Axe Backwards up close and personal, so that was pretty cool as well. And also got to say thank you to Kirk for letting me steal some of your footage. My camera actually died about halfway through the Beetleweight Rumble, so I was missing like half of that fight. So yeah, I stole from his channel to get some footage I was missing. I will link his channel in the description down below if you want to check out his fight videos. He almost always sticks a GoPro on the side of the arena and films every single match, or almost every single match at every tournament. So if you want to see more from Small Bots of Mass Destruction, definitely check his videos out. So next up, Son of Gore Gore is going to sit it out for a little bit. I don't have anything coming up in the super near future that is going to be a 150 gram event, but Demon Spawn is going to get cleaned up a little bit. Fortunately, it survived, despite losing all of its matches. It's still in okay shape. So it's going to get put back together for Dragon Con. So that is the first weekend of September. And then the second weekend of September, I will be heading out to Colorado for Spark Fun AVC, bringing a brand new 12-pounder. I hope that's still in progress right now, but I really hope I get that done. And then I just made the decision today. I was going to do a 12 and a 30. I decided to do a 1-pounder instead of a 30-pounder because it's just not going to happen in the time frame frame I have left to get things ready. So probably going to rebuild F1/3 or Jack Chop or something. Just something I've done before that'll be quick and easy to put together. And then on top of those two events, coming in very close succession to one another, at work I've actually been tasked to host a robot event. So I'm going to be helping to build a small arena and helping my coworkers put together some Viper kits to have robot battles at work, which would be really interesting. So it's going to be an incredibly busy month and a half probably coming up here. And then I keep trying to convince myself that it is physically impossible for me to do everything I'm doing and then go to that Battle Beach event. But man, Brian is making it tempting. But yeah, I have a lot going on in the coming future. I'm going to try to film as much of the build on the new 12-pounder as I can, but it may end up being more of just a video giving an overview of the robot when it's done, if I have time to do that. If nothing else, I will be filming on my trip out to Colorado and to Dragon Con and all that stuff. So look forward to seeing that, I don't know, maybe in October once I've had a chance to get some sleep. Thank you for joining me for this event report, and I will see you in the next one. Later.